It's time for a Zack Wilson show. A pissed off Zack Wilson show? We explain a YOLO Jets mentality heading into this Texans game and, quite frankly, the rest of the season. We'll preview that game, give you the latest on the injury report. Let's get into it. Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby. For me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
What's poppin', everybody? My name is Paul Liston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to a beautiful Saturday here on Boy Green Daily. Tomorrow we'll have our game day preview with Woody Woohoo coming up on a Sunday as we do for every game day. We were going to have a guest on today's show, but you know what? This one's going to be a solo program. And I like when we get an opportunity to do this, to speak with the fans one-on-one and get back, because for fans that have been following me for a long time, I used to do this podcast, to which my OG original was the Jet Zone, a New York Jets podcast. I used to do an audio form only. And to give you the behind the scenes, we had none of this camera, none of these kind of actions. I was in a radio station, no camera, mic, straight off, Jet Zone intro, and then just me riffing for like 30, 40 minutes on Jets topics, a little mailbag, a little bit of that. So it's always good to go back to the roots of what this show originally was before it's kind of, evolved into all these other things. So again, thank you everybody for the support. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe down below. There's also the audio only version if you guys still prefer that medium, wherever you find your podcast. Simply search for, of course, Boy Green Daily. Let's get into the latest injury report for the New York Jets. We got that coming in on Friday. A couple of things of worry, and then a couple of things, well, here we are once again. So here is the game report. We could also, as always, get some things late on Saturday here. Could be things to watch, but here we go. Let's show it up on the screen. We'll also walk you through it for our audio-only listeners. 3 guys already ruled out. That's Jason Brownlee. So that means more reps for Alan Lazard. Robert Saleh confirmed that in his Friday media availability, that means Alan Lazard will get more ops. So Jason Brownlee out, the undrafted free agent. Aaron Rodgers out. And they talked about this on the Can't Wait podcast this week. If the Jets beat the Texans, and here's why I say ultimately whatever happens down the stretch is win-win. If the Jets win, like beat the Texans, who are this fun team that are currently in the playoff picture, they got this offensive rookie year and everything else. If you beat them, of course, it feels good to win. Let's be honest. We do these Boy Green Daily shows. We do the post-game shows 2 hours after every game, which will be coming up on Sunday, obviously. And it's good to talk about a win. The Jets are on a 5-game losing streak. I barely remember what winning even feels like. So to get back off the schneid would be wonderful. And I mean that sincerely. So if you get the win, there's obvious things in that. If you get the loss, how I rationalize losses, I'm like, well, the tank. New England, of course, helped the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football, winning one of their games. Now they're only 1 win ahead or behind, however you choose to interpret it, of the New York Jets. You have the 3-win Patriots. You have the 3-win Cardinals, a bunch of 4-win teams. But here's the benefit for the Jets, for our tanking crowd. It seems like Jet fans are kind of split. There's half the fan base that wants them to lose, get the best possible draft pick. None of these wins are going to matter. Then there's the other half. Let's get some momentum. Let's get something popping. It's good for the team. And then let's snap this embarrassing losing streak and head into the offseason. Again, when I'm in front of the tube, I am rooting for the Jets. I'm not rooting for losses. That's just not how I operate, but different strokes, different folks. Now, when we're here talking and the game's not on and I can kind of be removed in some sense, I could see both the tanking, rationalization, and also the winning. Again, the Jets, especially with the Patriots win, have a path to the number 2 overall pick. There are some that argue that the Jets, if they landed that selection, would have to go with a Drake May out of North Carolina or a Caleb Williams out of USC. You have to get your young quarterback. There's others that are on the Marvin Harrison Jr. train. He's this dynamic wide receiver out of the Ohio State. You got a couple of offensive tackles, Joe Alt, Notre Dame, Fashanu out of Penn State. So you got those guys. So there's a bunch of blue chippers, depending on your perspective. And neighbors, a lot of people like out of OSU, regardless of what your take is. If the Jets lose, you can rationalize it. If they win, I think you can rationalize it as well. And here's another thing that's good for the winning portion of the exam. Technically speaking, the Jets are still mathematically alive for the playoffs. So if they beat the Texans, while it seems incredibly unlikely at 5-8 that would rev the engine, technically that would keep the light on for Aaron Rodgers, who has constantly circled that Christmas Eve Commanders date. And while some of you probably don't want to see Aaron Rodgers at all, there's another part of me that says, man, for him to be the first one to ever do it would be pretty cool. So keep an eye out for that. If they lose and drop to 4-9, that dream is likely officially dead. We already called it officially dead a little bit ago. The other guy was out, Wes Schweitzer. Good Lord have mercy. The Jets have just had so many offensive line issues. He was the starting right guard for the New York Jets. He's out, which means some shuffling will take place. A couple of other injuries. Breece Hall missed a couple of days of practice. JFM missed some practice. Carter Warner's a new injury added to the report, so that's another offensive line issue. But I wanted to highlight, because Rich Cimini of ESPN tweeted this out on Friday, so I wanted to bring this up in terms of the volatility on the offensive line. So obviously there is just a unluckiness to what's happened here. Here it is. This means on Sunday against the Texans tomorrow, the Jets will have their 9th straight game with a different offensive line with the Wes Schweitzer injury. 9th straight game since the Denver game was the last one they had offensive line continuity from 1 week to the next. Chiefs week 4, Broncos week 5. Since then, it's been a different O-line combination on a week-to-week basis. So here are all the different ones. Shout out to Rich Cimini for this. The Jets have had 3 different starting left tackles this season. 1 starting left guard. Shout out to Laken Tomlinson and Iron Man. 2 different starting centers this year. 6 different starting right guards this season and 5 different right tackles. You know, it's just incredibly difficult to win football games, generate offense, which again, this is one of the worst offenses in NFL history. So you could do all the excuse making you want. At the end of the day, this is a results-oriented business and you have to deliver. But the offensive line turnstile is there. And of course, as we highlighted at the beginning of this headline of the video, a pissed off Zack Wilson. Of course, we all know the Zack Wilson stuff this week. Some people say character assassination, this or that. The fact of the matter is Zack Wilson is not only the starter for this Texans game, but he is the starter for the rest of the season, quote unquote, God willing, as Robert Saleh put it, for the rest of the year. Here's the thing. Again, the Jets have nothing to lose here. They're 4-8. A lot of people would say they're not going to make the playoffs anyway. That'd be the 13th straight year. If they win games, you have a little buzz. If you lose games, the tank's on. So Zack Wilson is truly playing with a YOLO mindset. He's a dead man walking. I would be flabbergasted if Zack Wilson returned in any capacity next season. I think probably best for all parties to split this offseason, as Will Parkinson said earlier this week on our show. And it's just the fact of the matter is it's just unlikely that Zack Wilson's back, which means he's got 5 games just to F around and see what happens. So I'm kind of excited. Although, you know, we've seen this Zack Wilson before. The week 4 Kansas City Chiefs game got us all going crazy. So I have no idea what a pissed off Zack Wilson will mean. That's how a reporter said it to him. And he said he agreed with the assessment that a pissed off Zack Wilson can help, you know, and that he's got something to prove, the offensive something to prove. I'll tell you this, I'm rooting for the kid. He had a couple of mature answers. Again, I think there is some truth serum to the reluctancy to play, whether it's because the Jets were jerking him around or he realizes it's over. And, you know, it's fair for these players that I think we often forget are human beings to have these moments of vulnerability. And unfortunately, Zack Wilson confided in the wrong person because that person ended up spilling the tea to Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt. So I don't question the reporting or whether or not that's true. I think Zack Wilson just trusted the wrong people, and then ultimately it gets out here to the media. So whoever, I don't know what the intentions were of the players, staff members, and coaches that spilled the tea and spilled the guts. to Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini. I think a lot of you are sick of that story and don't want to hear it anymore. But the fact of the matter is, Zack Wilson, it's time to buckle the seatbelt and see what happens. Hopefully he can play with a little looseness. I would just throw the ball a lot to Garrett Wilson. Take some shots because literally you have nothing to lose. If you throw a pick, it doesn't matter anymore. I get that you have to look out for your own well-being, and it doesn't look good on your resume if you drop like 4 or 5 picks a game and then you're potentially a free agent or traded. That's what the Jets will be hoping for, but more likely than not cut and then signing with a new team and getting another chance. He's 24 years old. Somebody's going to give this young man a chance. But for Zach, again, this is truly YOLO through the rest of this season. So I just give Garrett Wilson a ton of targets and just kind of go with it. Hopefully there is a good rapport here with Zack Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett cooked up some plays that had open guys last week against the Falcons. Tim Boyle just couldn't see it. Now Tim Boyle is a street free agent. The quarterback combination, I think we mentioned this already earlier this week on the show, but if we did not, it is Zack Wilson QB1 for the rest of the year. It is Trevor Siemian QB2, the veteran. And then the emergency QB3 will be Brett Rippon, the new quarterback the Jets signed off the Seattle Seahawks practice squad. Again, his statistics aren't incredible, but outside of injury, he ain't getting on the field anyway from that perspective. So I'm just curious to see what kind of Zack Wilson we get. I'm going to be excited at the television. I'll have to dust off the Zack Wilson jersey, of course, because we haven't seen him in a hot second. But I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. Maybe it'll be the same old, a guy that throws around 200 passing yards as a touchdown, maybe a pick, a bad fumble or some turnover or something. And he's just kind of keeping you in the game because this Jets defense, outside of a couple of blowouts against Miami and Buffalo, will keep you in the contest as long as you don't have a lot of dumb self-inflicted turnovers. So this Texans team, I think, is interesting. We'll get more into it with Woody tomorrow, but you have a rookie quarterback. And then you have the oddity of the connective tissue here. So Robert Saleh, former San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, comes over here to the Jets, and he has that scheme in his head. DeMeco Ryans replaces Saleh in San Francisco as DC. Then he gets hired by the Texans this offseason. So the scheme that the Jets will be facing from offense to defense will be the same. The scheme that CJ Stroud will be facing against the Jets defense outside of some personnel will basically be the same. Saleh said on Friday that you just kind of have to avoid a little bit of the, what's the best way to put this, over complicating things. So just kind of, you got to line up and play your game, which again, naturally speaking, the Jets defense is somewhat simplistic. They hitch in waves, they rotate, and they force you as an offense to nickel and dime it all the way down the field. We saw Dak Prescott have success with that in week 2, where he simply took what the defense gave him on a play-to-play basis and took it the entire game. But normally opposing offenses get frustrated. We saw it with Mahomes during his slump 2 years ago or a year and a half, whenever that was, where he wanted the big play and it wasn't there, so he tried to force it to happen. The Jets defense normally does not give up those broken plays. Every once in a while you had the Pharaoh Cooper crazy play in New England earlier in the year, week 3. But historically speaking, this Jets defense makes you earn every single yard. Perhaps, as we've seen with the lack of offense for the Jets, they're going to need some special teams prowess, maybe a defensive play to get them in this game with a potent offense in CJ Stroud. But I'm going to be honest. Maybe this is going to come off arrogant. Maybe this is going to come off with a little chutzpah, if I may. But I think the Jets defense should be flexing their muscles against a rookie quarterback. Now, this doesn't look like your typical rookie quarterback. He has shown poise. He has shown some ability, obviously. But this defense has shut down the likes of Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen in the first game, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, come on. And then CJ Stroud, you're going to come in here and do things those guys didn't do? I don't think so. There's a level of respect. There's an excitement with the Texans. I also think there's a little jealousy probably from Jet fans because Saleh refused to answer this question during media availability, but someone pointed out, like, wow, Saleh, if Rippon or someone of that nature gets involved in the game, you'll have played 8 quarterbacks over your not first 2 years, the last 2 years, 2023 and 2022. Then you have CJ Stroud with the Texans, who's just healthy and a superstar, and they have their guy, and obviously that's led to team success as well. Saleh said, I'll let you guys, kind of play around with that in social media and media land. Like, what's he going to say to that? Yeah, our quarterbacks suck and it's unfortunate. No, obviously he's not going to say those things. So it just is what it is from that perspective. But there will be a little bit from Jet fans looking in the mirror of what could have been, because if the Jets hit on Zack Wilson, where would they be right now? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be here. So there's this NFL quality where all of a sudden you're questioning everything about what could have been, what should be. And now the Jets are here in this very unique position where I think a lot of us are thinking 2024, Rodgers, Devontae Adams, maybe, and all of the like that could possibly take place. But we shoulda, coulda, woulda been in the playoff conversation this year, especially when you look at the AFC. Pittsburgh stinks. They've lost 2 straight games to garbage-ass teams in Arizona and New England, and I understand the Jets lost to New England, so I understand what I'm saying by saying it. But Pittsburgh doesn't look great. They've been out-yardaged in every game this season. So Pittsburgh's whatever. Cleveland lost their quarterback. They're hanging in the mix. The Colts lost their quarterback. They're hanging in the mix. The only unique oddity, I suppose, is the Houston Texans, who obviously did not lose Stroud. But the AFC, Buffalo's down this year. The Bengals are down this year for obvious reasons. Hell, the Jaguars just had a quarterback issue of their own. Like, the AFC is just gettable. And we talked about this before the year. And unfortunately, the Jets, man, if you had Aaron Rodgers, it could be one of the top teams in the AFC, but obviously that didn't happen. So they don't have Aaron Rodgers, so they have to deal with the reality of the situation. It'll be interesting to see. Breece Hall is expected to play, but if he doesn't, we may finally get the Dalvin Cook show. And quite frankly, he's looked better than Breece Hall. So I'm curious if Breece Hall is unable to go again. He expects to go. He's been a little MIA at a practice this week for the majority of these practices. Dalvin Cook's looked better. I'd be interested if he got a full bell cow workload. What would that look like for Mr. Dalvin Cook? There's been pop, certainly, but a full shish kebab, that could be kind of interesting. And then, of course, as weather currently sets, of course, anything can change. It looks like another sloppy game coming up at MetLife, which I just don't understand. Like, what is happening here? What have the football gods done for the New York Jets to have all these rain games at home? I was looking forward to, some positivity and whatnot as I pull up the latest on the weather. It's supposed to be 54 and cloudy, and a lot of people are saying there are a participation chance here for rain. And look at the over-under, 33.5. Zero respect for the Jets offense. And by the way, looks around, can't blame them. The Jets offense has been terrible. But Zack Wilson is the best of the bunch. Now, I think that's a two-pronged thing. Number one, okay, Zack Wilson is better than Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian, not saying much since those guys stunk. But the second part of it is Joe Douglas playing. Like, if he's the best of what you got, then maybe you should have got better in free agency and things of that nature. We've beaten that like a dead horse, but that's going to be of paramount importance as we head into the 2024 offseason to invest in a guy, because Aaron Rodgers, of course, is going to turn 41 next year. And, he's going to be an older guy. And while he had been relatively healthy prior to this Achilles injury, appearing in 81 of 82 games, the only game he missed was COVID related, this is a guy that you have to make sure you protect, because you can't roll out the same thing next year. Have Zack Wilson as QB2. Rodgers, God forbid, gets hurt again. Then you have to do the Wilson train again for another entire year. That, to me, would be irresponsible. It would be naive by the Jets to do that. So they need to make sure the quarterback room is going to be this. This is what I prognosticate. I'm sure we'll do draft videos and other things of that nature, but it'll be Aaron Rodgers QB1. You have hopefully proven veteran backup. We'll do that once we get closer to the offseason of going through some of those videos. And then QB3 is going to be some rookie. Again, Zack Wilson would have to just play out of his mind to be on this team, let alone a potential QB3 on this team. There's just no way it could be QB2. Now, QB3 maybe, if there, again, is this spark. That would probably be more confusing. Although I would say this is why we go back to the theme of win-win as we're wrapping up here in the next few minutes. If Zack Wilson plays well, the Jets could maybe trade him for a late-round pick, and it's less about the pick. It's more so about getting rid of the salary. If the Jets just cut Zack Wilson, they have to eat a dead cap and make no savings, whether that's a pre-June 1 cut designation or post-June 1 cut designation, irrelevant. However, if they trade him, the Jets, they could save a little bit of cap relief from that perspective, but you would have to convince a team to give up anything of note to get Zack Wilson. And again, the only way that can happen is if he shows any juice through the final couple of games of this season. We'll see. I don't know. Because, let's be honest with ourselves. There was a reason Zack Wilson was benched in the first place. There's a lot of people on the social media street saying, oh, look, see, Tim Boyle stunk. Hey, look, Trevor Siemian stunk. You should have never gone away from Zack. And that part is just hindsight 2020. Zack Wilson was terrible. And there was moments where he was okay, but at the end of the day, you are the quarterback of an offense that's not scoring touchdowns. That, whether fair or unfair, falls at your feet, young man. It falls at your feet. So Zack Wilson deserved to get benched when he did earlier this year, and now he gets a chance to come back, and I'm rooting for him. Take advantage. What do you have to lose? I'll tell you, literally nothing, because I imagine he's going to be playing on a new team in 2024. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this Boy Green Daily. Like I said, we'll be back with a guest tomorrow. That'll be Woody for our game day preview. 1:00 Jets football. Can't beat it, baby. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe down below. Also check out our Heavy on Jets page for forums, articles, and all the like. It's going to be and will be and continue to be a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.